Okay, so now we know how to take a resource, like for example, address details, and add to this resource links, like we've added a link to an address, a link to a user resource, and a link to a collection of addresses. Now let's learn how to add these links to a collection of addresses. In our previous video, we were working with a particular address that we have fetched using address ID, but now if I send a request to /addresses so that I get a JSON array of addresses, I will see that there is no links yet. So let's work with this web service endpoint /addresses and learn how to add links to a response that returns a collection of addresses. And to do that, I will go to my Spring Tool suite, and we have a method here that is called getUserAddresses, and this method returns a list of objects of data type address, just the same model that we used in getUserAddress. It's just getUserAddress returns a single record, and getUserAddresses returns a collection of these records. Now we have a return value of data type list address rest, and it's called return value. Let's rename this to something like addresses list rest model, like this. Now I'll copy it and we'll replace in other places. Okay, in this method, the address services returns as a list of addresses in address DTO data type, and then if that list is not empty, we convert each address DTO into an address rest model, and then we return that response. So before returning addresses list model, let's now create links and add links for each of address records. And to do that, we will have to create a for loop and then loop through these elements, and to each element we will add a link. So I will bring up a little code snippet, which is a for loop, and it loops through the collection of elements of data type address rest, and for each element it creates a link, and then it adds that link to this address rest model. And each link uses method on, so we do not hard code URL path manually for address link. And if I run this code, everything should be okay. So let's do that. Okay, my application is up and running. I will bring up Postman and I will send this HTTP request and see if I get links added. Okay, I have a response, and this is a JSON array, and I should have two entries, one address for shipping and another address for billing. So that's correct. And each address, like this one, for example, with shipping details, I have two links. One link to self, another link to a user. And my links look correct. This one is to a user resource, and this one is to users, user ID, addresses, and address ID. Everything looks good. But notice there is a little difference. For example, this link has many more attributes. It has href length, media, title, type, and deprecation. And if I send HTTP request to get a resource of particular address, like copy this address ID, for example, and then send it, and have a look at that link. Here we have the link to self. This link entry doesn't have all of these elements, and links actually starts with the underscore. So if I go back to the list of addresses and have a look at that response model, now I don't have this underscore in the links. So the structure of these links is different. And if I go back to my code, I didn't do anything to change that. I used addresses rest, same model for the address details, and I used just the same way to create links. But there's still a difference. So now when we have links added, let's work and improve our response to make it consistent and look exactly the same, whether the link appears inside of the single address record or inside of collection of addresses.